AM560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So what do we understand from the alleged D.C. pipe bomber? That he's a white guy who thought the 2020 election was stolen, so he's MAGA. He's a white MAGA guy. Combination of Jake Tapper's reporting and the D.C. press corps reporting. No, not exactly. Not exactly. Relatives, neighbors, and sources familiar with the investigation into Brian Cole Jr., the D.C. pipe bomber, alleged, paint a picture of a naive young man, likely on the autism spectrum, who wouldn't have thrown up red flags while trotting out a pet chihuahua for walks near his family's home in Woodbridge, Virginia. Grandma Loretta says he's almost autistic-like because he doesn't understand a lot of stuff. I don't know. He's 30 years old. I mean, does he have a diagnosis or not? I don't know. She said he's not a terrorist. He's very naive. He would not hurt a fly. He's just not that kind of person. Well, what people think and then what people do. With respect to the thought the 2020 election was stolen and that was supposedly a possible motive, of course, the D.C. press corps doesn't bother to read its own reporting, at least some of its own reporting, which indicated that the alleged pipe bomb maker began making those pipe bombs in 2019. So that would be before the 2020 election. I mean, just a point of order. But you go ahead and work on selling half the country that would probably buy it. They're so sort of ideologically blinded that it's a white MAGA guy and it's violence from the right that's the real political problem in this country. For more on this topic and others, pleased to be joined by Susan Crabtree. She, of course, is an investigative reporter, White House correspondent for RealClearPolitics.com. She's also the author of the book Fool's Gold: The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten us all. Fool's Gold is the book. Susan Crabtree, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So what can you add to our understanding of this white, MAGA-loving D.C. pipe bomber?
Yeah, not so much. What we've found out is just sort of piled mystery on mystery, as Miranda Devine has said in her recent column. I would invite your readers to go there and your viewers to read what she came up with, which is exactly spot on. This idea that he is MAGA, that he was upset about the election, the so-called stolen election, was put out by Natasha Bertrand. She was the CNN reporter that is responsible for that reporting, that dumped all that ridiculous statements from 51 intelligence officials that discredited the laptop from hell that Miranda Devine reported on, censored it, basically, convinced the social media, Twitter at the time, and Facebook to censor anybody who talked about it online. So she's the one who's trying to build up that narrative. But what I'm interested in this reporting is the so-called corrupted cell phone records. Because we want to know why the FBI under Christopher Wray, under Biden's administration, could not come up with this material and get an indictment or an arrest for 5 years.
Right, and that's right. So that disclosure is of interest for certain. And of course, it seems to be they're sort of preempting the cover story with this idea that he would fly under the radar. So just because you have pings on his cell phone in the area at the time in question doesn't mean that you don't have many, many others. And how do you drill down from the the wide swath into this particular individual. I suppose that's what you would hear from the FBI, which is why we need to understand exactly what they accomplished with respect to this investigation and where they left it off before they handed it off.
That's right. One of the top officials at the FBI, strangely enough, he was the same one that was responsible for that Gretchen Whitmer patsy type of attack that they were plotting against her, that people were plotting against her, and it was absolutely false. He's the one who told Congress that one of the cell phone records from the three telecom companies that they asked for them was corrupted. Of course, the telecom companies told Congress that's not true in a report that was released this January. So that was their big excuse on why they could not pin this down, why they could not locate anyone responsible for this. But it just leads you to wonder, what was that? Was that a perjury to Congress?
Do you believe that, at this juncture, that it is a closed question as to whether or not this Brian Cole is the right guy, as Dan Bongino said last week, and that he acted alone for, at this point, an unknown reason?
I don't know if they're saying he acted alone. They don't have any information at this point to share. Whether he acted alone, I honestly believe that it was rushed. This arrest of him was rushed because, as you know, or maybe your listeners don't know, that Miranda Devine was reported a very critical column about the FBI, that it was rudderless, and that there were people that were incredibly unhappy with the direction of the FBI, and some, that minor flap about Kash Patel's rain jacket and whether he wanted to look like a souped-up FBI agent when he departed the plane in Utah after Charlie Kirk's assassination. Now, I don't think the rain jacket is a big deal, but these other complaints about what was going on in the FBI are interesting in the timing that this was done, the arrest was made. And they said in the press conference, as soon as they had the address, just a few days after that report, when Kash and Dan were under incredible pressure to produce results, especially after they were embarrassed over the Thomas Crooks larger digital profile, we'll put it that way, and his connections to a furry site that they didn't disclose, and that Miranda and Tucker Carlson disclosed.
Yeah.
And I helped out with that report. Miranda called me, and I contributed to that report. And then they threw cold water all over it. I think they were under a lot of pressure to produce some results on something else because they screwed up on the Thomas Crooks story.
Well, it is interesting. So number one, ABC News, I know over the weekend, reported that he confessed during his interrogation. Okay. And then we have this question about his mental capacity based on some of the characterizations of the family. I don't know. I don't know the veracity of that. That would be interesting, though. But Bongino said on Hannity last week after the arrest, this is the beginning of the investigation, which sort of speaks to they're not ready to just say that he was the sole actor. So you have a confession, you have some physical evidence that seems to place him at the DNC and RNC at the relevant time, in addition to what he did in terms of buying supplies from these hardware stores and so forth. But it was interesting that Bongino said the beginning of the investigation was this arrest.
Yeah, because I want to know if they talked to the father. Because the father, as we now know from Luke Roshak, who's a former colleague of mine and just won one of the Dow Award, he's one of the winners from 2 weeks ago for his Doge reporting, great investigative reporter that I'm really good friends with. He reported that the father was a bail bondsman, owned this company that was getting immigrants out of ICE detention centers, bailing them out, and that he sued the DHS under Trump for the policies against immigrants at the time. So why did you talk to the dad? The dad was at the arraignment, I understand from the reporting over the weekend. I just think this whole thing was rushed. It was on Dan Bongino's birthday. I think Dan Bongino's headed out the door.
Really?
At the FBI. Yep, that's my reporting suggests that. And I think this is all time to give him a win on the way out the door. It is a great development, a breakthrough. I gave him credit for that and cash for that in my reporting on Friday. But whether this is the beginning of the story or the end of the story, this is the beginning of the story.
Why is Bongino on his way out? Is that his choice or is that the administration's choice?
That's a good question. I don't know. There was, as you know, there was a big dust-up between he and Pam Bondi over the Epstein files,
right? Where
he threatened to say if it was me or Pam Bondi, it's going to have to go. And so I think things have been just simmering down, and I think there was a determination at that point that he would leave at around Christmas time.
That's very interesting. Because, of course, Trump has reiterated his faith in cash, as he has Hegseth, anybody who comes under fire, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's what you should do. You're not going to let the D.C. press corps dictate your personnel choices. But what a president or a politician says publicly and what may be going behind the scenes, two different things. So, I mean, is it your sense from, your contacts that in addition to that potential dust up with Bondi there over the Epstein files, that there are people in the inner circle that have lost faith in Dan and Cash, or it's just a situation where it's mutual and Dan wants to go back to podcasting and so forth? I don't know.
I do think he is upset about his podcasting career because this has damaged it, not irreparably, because he has a strong following, obviously. But I do think he, being in government, has compromised his positions on Epstein and Thomas Crook and other investigations, meaning that he can't talk about them. And how do you be a podcaster if you can't talk honestly about them because it's classified material? Didn't want to talk about Thomas Crook, his whole footprint. Didn't feel obligated to tell the American people the truth about that, and that Thomas Crook, the Trump shooter, was anti-Trump, and that was in direct contradiction to what Christopher Wray testified to Congress about him. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, who knows if it is his choice or the administration's choice. I mean, people do know, but I can't confirm that right now. But I do believe he's on his way out, and this was rushed so that he could get a win on his way out the door.
Susan Crabtree, RealClearPolitics.com's national political correspondent, co-author of the book Fool's Gold, The Radicals, Con Artists, and Traitors Who Killed the California Dream and Now Threaten Us All. Fool's Gold is the book. Susan Crabtree, the reporter. Susan, thank you as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me. Take care.
Take care. And Susan joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Hello, my name is Dr. Michael Huber, co-founder and developer of Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail. From all of us at Virago, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah and a Happy New Year. To our incredible 560 AM listeners, we want to say thank you for your support.